Let's jump right into this explainer. When we think about massive historical turning points or grand rebellions, our minds almost automatically go straight to the generals, the soldiers, and the battlefields. But today, we're going deep into how one woman's vast wealth, her privilege, and her razor-sharp intellect became the absolute secret engine of Filipino independence.
So here's a question for you. How do you actually fund a revolution? We kind of tend to romanticize wars as being fought entirely on the front lines with swords, bolos, and just sheer courage. But step back for a second and really think about the logistics of it all. How do you actually feed a rebel army? Where are their weapons coming from? How in the world do you bankroll a rebellion when you're completely cut off from institutional resources and government backing? The stark reality is that revolutions run on money and logistics just as much as they run on blood and ideals.
Well, the answer to that massive logistical nightmare is a woman named Gliceria Marella Villavicencio. In 1898, she was officially bestowed with this breathtaking title by General Emilio Aguinaldo, Madre de la Revolución, or Mother of the Revolution. Now, while she was known affectionately to her close circle as Aling Uryang, her historical legacy is truly that of the Godmother of the Revolution. She's this remarkable, yet honestly frequently underappreciated historical figure who practically single-handedly fueled the fight against not just one, but two colonial powers, Spanish rule and then the subsequent American occupation.
Part 1. The Revolution's Hidden Engine, From Privilege to Purpose. To really grasp her sacrifice, you've kind of got to look at where she started. Born in 1852 into a highly prominent family in Tal, Batangas, she was surrounded by just staggering privilege. I mean, she had every single reason and opportunity to just live a comfortable, sheltered, totally safe life under Spanish colonial rule. But she had this incredibly sharp intellect and just an overriding love for her country. So instead of sitting quietly on the sidelines in luxury, she made a conscious, highly dangerous choice. She took her boundless fortune and used it to fight for her country's freedom.
Moving on to part 2, financing the fight, the logistical backbone.
The scale of her subversive efforts was just mind-blowing. First off, she literally bankrolled the printing of José Rizal's incredibly subversive novels No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo. These were the exact books that ignited the national consciousness of the Philippines. But it wasn't just about funding ideas. When the revolution violently broke out in 1896, she opened her coffers completely. We're talking distributing food, clothing, and critical funds to the Katipuneros, the Filipino revolutionaries. And perhaps most dangerously of all, she actually turned her own grand ancestral home into a clandestine meeting place. It became an intelligence hub and a secret refuge for revolutionary leaders, operating quite literally right under the noses of the Spanish Guardia Civil who were constantly monitoring her household. No fear at all. Part 3. The first revolutionary warship, the SS Bulacan. Okay, get this. Her contributions went way beyond books and safe houses. She and her husband, Ulalalio, didn't just donate a portion of their income, they literally handed over their own private steamship directly to the revolutionary government. To put that into perspective, in today's terms, that's kind of like a billionaire casually donating their mega yacht to a guerrilla army. Handing over an entire maritime vessel to a rebel force is a level of commitment that is honestly hard to even fathom.
And this wasn't just a basic ferry. This vessel became the Katipunan's very first warship. You have to remember the geography of the Philippines here. It's a vast archipelago. A revolution across scattered islands simply cannot succeed with reliable sea transport. This steamship provided a vital, moving logistical network. It transported troops, moved heavy ammunition, delivered critical food supplies, and carried highly secret communications across the islands to connect all these disparate revolutionary forces. It was the physical lifeline that kept the rebellion breathing.
Part 4. The Ultimate Sacrifice, the Cost of Rebellion. Defying an empire is never free, and the stakes escalated so incredibly fast. When the revolution broke out in 1896, the Spanish authorities quickly zeroed in on her family because of their known sympathies and material support. Her husband, Eulalio, was arrested for treason and thrown right into the notorious Fort Santiago. Just 2 years later, in 1898, he was finally released, but the brutal conditions of his imprisonment caused his health to completely deteriorate. He tragically passed away shortly after gaining his freedom. It's in this exact same year, right in the midst of profound grief, that General Aguinaldo officially honors her with the title Mother of the Revolution. But there's this incredible, agonizing, hidden layer to that tragedy.
Right in the middle of all that, while her husband was suffering in Fort Santiago, the Spanish authorities offered Gliceria a horrifying ultimatum. They basically weighed her husband's immediate freedom against one simple demand: betray the revolutionary network and give up her intelligence to the authorities. It was psychological torture meant to break her, but she stoically refused to betray her country. Can you imagine that choice? She chose to endure the agonizing separation, knowing full well her husband's health was failing, rather than compromise the freedom of her nation.
You'd think she might step back after all that heartbreak, right? But no, her resolve never wavered. Even after the Spanish were defeated and the Americans subsequently arrived to occupy the Philippines, she didn't surrender or retreat into her wealth. She simply adapted. She continued her fierce resistance by funding guerrilla operations under General Miguel Malvar, providing the vital logistical backing needed to keep the fight alive until the absolute close of the war. Her stamina for liberty was practically limitless.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this one thought that perfectly captures her legacy. She did not fight on the front lines with a bolo, but without her wealth, logistics, and unwavering resolve, the revolutionary engines in southern Luzon would have ground to a halt. It's so true. Revolutions are won not just by the warriors swinging swords on the battlefield, but by the unsung heroes, the strategic minds, the financiers, the godmothers, who keep the entire engine running in the dark. It really makes you wonder, right? What monumental shifts in our world today are relying entirely on invisible logistics, just waiting for someone with the courage to fund them? Keep that in mind as you look at history. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.